In this example, we're going to do some basic V-bit carving. Now, before we start, I'd like to point out on the Carveco website, there's lots and lots of videos explaining how to do certain things. So I'm going to assume that you know how to do some of these things. So if you go onto the Carveco website and then select the training tab at the top here, this will take you to the Carveco training page. And if you scroll down, you can see that there's videos basically getting to know the software, how to use the view controls, basically showing you every tool that's within Carveco Maker. So you can get familiar with something that I may not go into great detail over in this example. So what I'm going to do first of all is import an image, and I'm going to show you two ways to do this. The first way, if I go to import, and then if I go to my tropical skull example and click select and then select open, this will open up the set model size dialog. Now, if I'm working in inches, select inches, and then I can change the width of this. Let's say 12 inches. Now, notice that when I change the width of that, it also changes the height of it. So this sets up my actual material or my model as 12 inches by 11.9. Now, I may not really want that, and I don't really want that for this particular model. So what I'm going to do is cancel that, and I'm going to go to new model, and then I'm going to import it into a new model. So I'm going to set it up as 12 inches by 12 inches. I'm going to keep the origin or the datum to be in the center. So you do that by just clicking on any of the four corners or the center. Make sure the resolution is cranked right the way up to the right hand side. And I'm going to do this in inches. And then select OK. Now what I'm going to do to import it is right click on Bitmaps, import, go to my same folder, select it, and then importantly don't select open. I'm going to click fit on the scaling. Click open. Now when you do that, it will look as though it hasn't actually done anything, but I can see that it has done something because all the colors have changed down the bottom. Now the reason that it doesn't look like it's showing anything is because you need to go over to here, hold the left mouse button down, gives you a flyout, and then it says display bitmap. So at the moment it's displaying the material. Now I'm not going to worry about that because I can also display the bitmap by going to the 2D view. So if I go to the 2D view, it shows me the bitmap. So I'm just going to do a basic tracing of this, and to do that, all that you need to do is go over to bitmap to vector, and I'm going to just put this back to the default sizes. 99% of the time, default sizes are absolutely fine. Now what you need to do is reduce the colors. If you don't click reduce colors and create vectors, you can see that it's not really created anything for me. I don't think that it's actually created any vectors for me. Now that's because it's tracing around this particular color, which is the primary color. So what I need to do is reduce the colors and tell Carveco Maker that I want to trace around one color or a certain color. So to do that, click reduce colors. Let's move that out of the way, and automatically it comes down to 32 colors. Now what you can do here is just select certain colors and then you can trace around it. So what I'm going to do is let's bring it right the way down to 2 colors. Now when I do that, you can see that I've lost a lot of the detail here, so I need to bring some back. So let's go up to 3 colors. To be honest, that looks okay, so leave that at 3 colors. So if I click apply, and then what I want to do is trace around this darker color. Now if I wanted to, I could blend that green color into the yellow. All that you need to do is select that color and that color, so left and right click, and then click that little chain there, and it basically groups them together or converts the green into the yellow colour. I don't really need to do that, because what I'm going to do is select the brown colour, and I'm just going to click create vectors, and that's going to give me the vectors that I need to machine this part. So I can now close that. Let's go to the 3D view, and you can see that I've got these vectors. So now what I'm going to do is just move these out of the way just for the moment. So just grab them, move them out of the way. What I'm going to do is just draw a circle. Now this is going to be the outside edge of my model. So let's do that diameter, and let's say, I don't know, let's say that this is going to be 11.5 inches, and click create. Now I could do it 12, it's entirely up to you, however you want to do it. Click create, and then that's created that circle. Now what I'm going to do is select those and then press F9 on the keyboard, and that will put that into the center. Now you can see that the text is a little bit close to this, because what I want to do is create a border. So what I'm going to do with that is go to transform, and then I can either enter in a specific size, or I can move that, press Alt down on the keyboard, and it will just move and maintain the aspect ratio. Maybe a little bit more. I'm not too fussed about sizes, I'm more worried about what it actually looks like. So that looks good. And then what I'm going to do is select that one. And again, I'm not really bothered about sizes, so what I'm going to do is offset vectors. And then I'm going to hover over there, and you can see that the cursor changes to a solid black arrow. When it does that, you can just grab the vector and then move inwards. So I'll move that maybe into about there, and then I can close the offset vectors. So that looks okay, and I'm pretty much ready to machine this now. So what I'm going to do first of all, just to make this a bit easier to select, is draw a box around the center portion, and then I'm going to deselect any of the text that it's picked up. The reason that I'm doing this is just to make it easier for me to select in a moment. And then make sure that you don't select this circle here. And then what I'm going to do is come over to group, and then they'll all turn purple. So then if I select that, you can see that it selects the whole portion on the inside. Now I'll explain in a moment why I've done that. So now we can start machining this. So if I go to Toolpaths, and then I'll just machine the whole thing to start with so you can see it. So I'm going to select everything except the very outside circle. And I'm going to do a V-bit carving toolpath. Now the first thing that I'm going to do, let's just turn that off, is go and define my material. So I'm going to set that up as, let's say, I think the material that I have is 3/4 of an inch. Material Z0 is going to be on the top of the material. Don't worry about this. This is for 3D pieces. So don't worry about that. Just leave that at the top. Select OK. And that sets up your material. If I rotate around, you can see that I've got this blue portion underneath, which is the stock of the material. So now what I'm going to do is select a carving tool. So just come down, select a V-bit that you happen to have. I have just this stock one from the Carveco library, which is a 90-degree V-bit. Click select, and then importantly what you need to do is click refresh and make sure that you don't have any intersections or any problems with the vectors. If you do, watch the Vector Doctor fundamentals training video. It shows you how to sort out any problems. So the Vector Doctor is up here. So I don't have any problems, so I'm happy to carry on and machine this. Now, if I were to calculate this, it's telling me that the toolpath will cut through the material base. Now, why is that? That's because the maximum depth that this actually wants to get into is 0.92 inches. And my material's only 3/4 of an inch. So it's going to actually cut through the base and into the wasteboard or the spar board. So if I click yes, let's see what it actually does. So if I open this up, right click, simulate the toolpath, and you can see that it's going really, really deep here. If I actually rotate this around, you can see that it's come out the bottom. So that's no good. I don't really want that. So let's delete that. Turn on the vectors again, and I'm just going to turn off this light bulb. That's basically showing me all these grey toolpaths where the toolpath or the tool is actually going. So let's turn that off so we've got the vectors back. So what I'm going to do is limit the tool to a maximum depth. So once it gets to that depth, it will then start stepping over in X and Y and then hogging out material. So let's do that at, let's try 0.2 inches and then click calculate now. So if I simulate that again, you can see that it's not going through the base this time. If I rotate that around, not going through the base. That's absolutely fine. Now, the only thing that I've got, which doesn't look good, is especially here on this area, you see how this is coming over. This is all to do with the step over. So it's doing a full cut here, and then it's stepping over by whatever distance I've specified, and then it's doing another full cut, and it's not hogging out all the material. Now I could do a roughing tool, but I'm not going to do that on this example. I just want to use the V bit. I'll do that in a later example. So for the V bit, let's click the drop down, and you can see that the step over is actually 0.3125 inches. So let's change that to something smaller. Let's try 40 thou. And then calculate again. And there you can see that these paths are a lot closer together. So if I delete that simulation and then simulate it again, you can see it's going closer together. Now it's entirely up to you how you want this to actually look, how good you want this. So I could make it even smaller, maybe make it down to, I don't know, let's say 10 thou, and calculate it again. All depends on the type of finish that you want and how long you want to actually machine it for. So if I delete that simulation, simulate again, you can see that it's a lot better. And to be honest, with 10 thou on the machine, you probably won't really see all of this jaggedness. It will probably just smooth it all out anyway. So I'll see what that looks like on the actual machine. Right, so if we take a look at this, you can see that we'll go back to the tropical skull, and let's turn this off. What I want to do is actually, I want to colour the skull and the leaves. I want to paint them when the job's actually done. Now you can see here that I can't really do that. I want the eye sunk in. I don't want the skull to be machined out. So I'll show you how you can do that. So what I'm going to do is turn on the vectors again, and I'm going to delete the simulation, take a plan view, and then I'm not going to machine this. So for this one, I like the text the way that it is, but I don't like the way that it's machining the inside. So what I'm going to do is calculate that, and then if I simulate this now, you can see that it just does the text. So now what I can do is close that, and I can create another V-bit carving for the inside, and it won't machine that skull. So if I delete that and then turn on the vectors, and then I'm going to go back to Toolpaths and then create a V-bit carving toolpath. And for this one, I'm going to select the skull or the grouped objects. That's the reason that I've done this while group them, so I can select them easier. And I'm going to select that outside circle of the skull. I'm not going to limit the tool. Carving tool, let's go down, use exactly the same tool, save me having to change the tool, so I can just do all this in one go. Even though I've done 2 tool paths, because I'm using the same tool, I can just let it carry on. Click refresh, and you can see that this one wants to go quite deep as well. So I'm going to limit that, but I'm going to do this a little bit smaller, let's say 1/8 of an inch. And then click calculate now. Now again, you've got the same step over, so I can see that there on the eye. So I'm going to change that to be 10th there as well. And then let's close that. And then let's simulate that second one. And you can see that that's given me exactly what I want. So I can start painting the skull and the leaves. I couldn't do that previously. So let's simulate the original V-bit carving. You can see that gives you that. So I quite like that. So that looks cool. I'm happy with the V-bit carving for that. What I'm going to do now is turn on the vectors again, and this outside circle, I want to cut this out. So what I'm going to do is go to Toolpaths, and I'm going to create a profile toolpath. Make sure that you've got it set to outside, and the finish depth is 0.75. You could set that a little bit deeper if you want it to machine into the wasteboard, entirely up to you. Select the profiling tool. I'm going to use 1/4 of an inch end mill. You can add ramping moves if you want. So this basically goes into the material at an angle rather than plunging straight in. So I'll do that. Just use the default values. And also I'm going to add bridges because this is going to be clamped. So I want to make sure that this stays within the material. So click add bridges. I'm going to add a constant number of bridges. So 4 bridges are also called tabs. So it just basically leaves a bit of material on so it stays within the original piece of material. The length, let's do this not very large, let's say 0.1 of an inch, and I'll also do the thickness at 0.1. I'm going to do 2D bridges just to make sure that they're quite rigid, and then I'm going to select add, and then that will add 4 bridges at the specified sizes. If you want to change where they are, just go into edit bridges. Again, there's another video on that. Then I can select calculate now. And if I zoom in on that little portion there, you can see that it's not cutting that little bit there. So if I rotate around, the red is the toolpaths. So on that last one, it's coming around, jumping up and coming across. So it will leave the material on there for me. So if I close that and then simulate that toolpath, you can see that it has left the part connected to the original piece of material. So if I rotate round, and that looks quite good. So I'm ready to machine this now. So what I need to do is save this out so I can send it to my machine. So click Toolpaths, and then here I've got Save Toolpaths. So if I select that, and I'm going to stick this in my tropical skull example. give it a name, and then I'm going to come down to the machine that I'm using, which is the Onefinity. So I've got these Onefinity posts here, and I've got a Onefinity no tool change. So if I select that, what this is going to do is it's going to let me basically carry on doing these 2 V-bit carving with the same tool, and it's not going to give me a warning message to tell me to change the tool. So it'll just carry on and do it. So what I'm going to do is move the profile over to there, and I'm also going to give this a name, a V-bit, just so I know which toolpath it is. Click save, move all of those over there. I'm going to move the profile, and I'm going to call this cutout, and then save that there. Right, so let's send these to the machine and let's get cutting. So once that was finished machining, I took it off the machine. The footage that you just saw was actually the second piece that I produced. This was the first piece, and I started painting it by hand. And you can see that it looks quite good, but I wasn't really happy with the text because it was so thin the way that I'd done it that I couldn't really paint it properly. And also because I undercoated it black, it didn't really make the colours vibrant. They looked a bit more deeper. So what I'd done, put it back onto the machine, put some aura mask on it, and this time I painted it white beforehand. Here you can see off the Onefinity, and then with all the aura mask taken off. So then I painted it again, and I was really pleased with the results, and it made it much more vibrant, the colours, and it just looks so much better by undercoating it white. And here you can see the finished piece. So I hope that you found this tutorial useful, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Goodbye.